Welcome, everyone. I have Travis Hogue with me from Outdoor Lighting Perspectives, and we're going to dive into his company, and I'll let him kind of speak a little bit about his background and kind of how he became the owner of the Orlando branch and some other branches down in Florida for Outdoor Lighting Perspectives. So, welcome, Travis.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Travis Hogue with Outdoor Lighting Perspectives. Outdoor Lighting Perspectives is the largest low voltage lighting franchise in North America, with locations all around the US and up in Canada. Back in the beginning of COVID in 2020, decided to go from my professional career in engineering and spin off into home services. And so after a little bit of research, purchased the territory here in Orlando, and since then I've expanded down the east coast of Florida all the way through West Palm Beach. So it's been fun.
Awesome. Why don't you share a little bit about what you guys do
Yeah.
at Outdoor Lighting Perspectives?
Yeah. So I usually tell people that if it makes light and it's outside, we do it. So we cover mostly low voltage lighting systems, although we do assist with design and coordination with other subcontractors for other lighting installations for line voltage, parking lot, municipality, things like that. But our typical client is a affluent residential client that is looking to light up the landscape, facades of their home with either white or color changing lights. And we also have recently got into the color changing roofline product that you're seeing nowadays. There's a couple different manufacturers out there, but we do the color changing smart products on the roofline. We also do temporary holiday and event installations. So we are one of those companies running around frantically starting in September, running around hanging Christmas lights on all the HOAs and commercial properties, and then also for large homeowners properties and malls, hospitals, retail centers, and all that. So if it's lighting and outdoors, we take care of it.
Awesome. I know that you, when we spoke previously, had a really interesting project that you guys had worked on with some custom chandeliers. I thought that'd be a
Yeah.
really neat project to kind of touch base on while we're in this conversation here.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we do everything. We've got clients that are in like 55 and up communities, 1,800 square foot houses, and we're doing 6 to 8 fixtures for the homeowners, the builders at like a very budget conscious level. And then we have one that had a large oak tree on their property and they wanted to build a patio around the tree with a hot tub and things like that. It was a couple 100 feet from the main home. And we're walking with the homeowner and they're like, hey, we just came back from Napa. I want to do chandeliers in this tree. And I'm like, oh, cool, rustic. We'll do some oak barrel custom chandeliers. And she's like, I really want crystal actually, if we could do that. And so we have 5 large crystal chandeliers, actually restoration hardware chandeliers, converted them to low voltage, got them all tied in with the system with their massive color changing system on property. And it's awesome. They're these huge chandeliers in this old growth oak tree. We got a contract with them. So actually, if we're in Florida, so we get hurricanes, we actually can go and remove the chandeliers out of the tree in about an hour. And so we take them down and hang them up depending on weather. And yeah, from simple and mild to whatever you can dream up, we make it happen.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you used to be an engineer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what type of engineering were you in, and what prompted the decision to get into this?
Yeah. So, I'll make a very long lifetime of experience and try to condense it in a couple of minutes. But I went to school for electrical and architectural engineering. And so my dream I loved theme parks as a kid. Like that was, I wanted to be a roller coaster engineer. And so being in Orlando and going to college here, I got connected with an MEP consulting company. So I was an electrical engineer with the MEP consultants. We worked in the theme park sector, so SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, Universal, Disney, Legoland, a bunch of overseas parks. We also did resorts, and so I did a lot of electrical engineering, ride integration, lighting design, and then eventually moved up to project management while I was working there. So overseeing everything from, MEP to fire protection, low voltage, audio, access control, and all of that. Worked closely with architects on that coordination. In 2018, my wife and I wanted to put a swimming pool in the backyard of our house, and we are getting some bids. And I was like, well, this is just a project. So I'm already a project manager. This is just subcontractors and bids and estimates and plannings. I worked with a buddy of mine that was a landscape architect over at Disney. We designed my backyard. I went and got some bids. Uh, wasn't getting the response I was looking from the builders that I was hoping for. They were trying to change the plan, and I'm over here saying, got a landscape architect that is, $1,000 an hour, did my plans, don't go change them. And so ended up kind of following around a couple of the pool builders in the area, walking up onto their properties that they're working on and saying, hey, the Gunite crew, I know you don't work with, you're not employed by this person. I know you're a sub. Can I get your business card? And so I started collecting subs that way. Built our own pool, came out better than expected. And I thought I was going to go in to be a pool builder. Realized in Florida, the difficulty to get that licensing was about the same as being a, home builder. I want to be a pool builder if I could go be a GC. And then during that, my wife was in franchising and small business. We were connected to a franchise consultant. He introduced me to a company called Architect, which is a decking company franchise. And they're owned by what is now Empower Brands, which owns a lot of franchise brands and owns Outdoor Lighting Perspectives. So kind of during the discovery of that brand, stumbled into this one. And as soon as I learned about it, it was like, that's way better than decks. First, there's no decks in Florida, so let's go do some lighting. There's a lot of lights here, and jumped in, and then had really simple goals and exceeded all of them. We were the first location to do $1 million in revenue in our first year of business, and we've been growing foot on the throttle ever since. So that's 8 years of story into a couple of minutes here.
So a lot of the people that I speak with are business owners of their own business. So it's a little different that you went and started up your own franchise portion of it. So I guess in your experience, by starting a franchise, what help was given to you, or like what consultations were they able to provide you to make your journey to be successful? So
Yeah. So to me, it was important once I learned and kind of my experience with learning about franchising and that relationship between the franchisee and franchisor. My background, my mom was a mechanical engineer. My dad's an electrical engineer. My brother's an electrical engineer. I did engineering. There's some light entrepreneurship in there from kind of side things my parents did and things I've done when I was in high school and college with, flipping computers and things like that. But there's never been any business ownership, and I didn't go to school for that. I took an economics class in high school, and I think a statistics class in college that was mostly engineering statistics, touched on a little bit of business and things. I mean, there's no business background there. I have no background in marketing, HR, none of that. And so having the franchise there really allowed me to skip a lot of those things that as a new business you struggle with, like picking out and developing a CRM, figuring out your pricing, figuring out your marketing strategy, marketing metrics that work. It allowed me to not waste a lot of money on those things that take, if you're going to develop and have a fast growing business, it costs a lot of money up front to develop all those things. For us, one of the things I always say, still my best value I get from the franchise is our franchise system owns outdoorlights.com. I couldn't afford to buy that URL if I wanted it. So that's a phenomenal URL. And that means the day I opened in our Orlando market, we were the top outdoor lights search and SEO for our market because of the strength of that website. So, I think what it allowed us to do was we could grow very quickly. In my intent, I was 30 when I started the franchise, a young family. I still have a young family. And my goal was to basically build as much revenue as quickly as possible. And then a couple years in, turn the profit tap on and start collecting those profits. So by being able to grow quicker, it made it that way in 3 to 5 years when I was ready to turn the profits on. We were collecting profits on a much larger revenue than what I would say is kind of like more organic or steady state growth. So that's been the biggest help from the franchise, is just kind of that like kickstart right from the beginning.
So what problems or challenges did you encounter, in those first couple of years where you were focused on revenue,
Yeah.
building that stream?
Yeah. So, fast growth is expensive. I spoke recently to a group, and it was a weird thing in our first year to come out, and we got an award for the fastest growing location and got celebrated at our franchise annual meeting and brought up on stage and hands shake. And I got one of these trophies behind me for first year growth and, all these accolades. And they're like, we did about $1,050,000 in our first year. And somebody walked up to me like, man, how did you do that? And I was like, we spent $1.1 million. Like if we, that's pretty cool, but it was the red, and then we were in the red again the second year. And a lot of that was trying to spend local marketing, figure out local marketing, not coming with a business background. I hired a business coach very early on to supplement what I was learning from the franchise because I realized I was behind. There's a lot I didn't know. It was wild to be in meetings during franchise training and they're like, all right, so your P&L. I'm like, great. What does that stand for? Can we talk about like we need to back up? And so there was a lot of expense at the beginning of just learning and the cost of learning. We still invest heavily in different third-party trainings that we do for our staff. I'm always buying different, sales. I've got a little library in the office of sales books and lighting design, and we try to keep training ongoing for our staff. So there's a lot of cost in training in first year and learning that I think most business owners aren't anticipating. And then as well, you have marketing trial and error. So there's probably 20 grand in our first year of marketing expense that had no return and were contracts that we ended up canceling because they weren't the right fit for either our business, our industry, or our location. So there's a lot of costs in there that don't really fit on your pro forma, which was another thing I learned about. When you're first starting out and trying to develop the business, there's not a line item for like 20 grand on fire while you're trying to figure out how to outreach your clients on digital marketing.
Absolutely. So it seems like you figured it out because you've opened, several branches down in Florida. So why don't you share some of the, key points that have made you so successful to be able to open more branches down there?
Yeah. I think there's a big mindset change. So one of the things from my business coach was, and you hear in a lot of podcasts and a lot of advice and different interviews, but it's like surround yourself and place yourself in the room with people you want to be like, not with the people that are going to hold you back. So, it's like quickly within our franchise system, trying to identify the other outdoor lighting perspectives owners that are successful and they're trying to grow and they're not sitting in stagnant markets or stagnant businesses. So there were even top performers out there, but they were just happy at their current pace. They're not trying to grow their business. It's like, okay, well, I'm excited that they're doing a lot of revenue and they have profitable businesses and doing well, but I want to talk with the people that are more interested in growing or that have grown their businesses and are continuing to grow. So, placing yourself with those groups of people also gives you a lot of opportunities that you know, are hard to come by otherwise. Recognizing that a lot of our clients are business owners with successful businesses and have a lot of things that I can gain. So I remember early on, we did a gentleman's house here in Orlando that him and his family were great. A perfect client. They had great budgets. They loved our design. They continued to do maintenance with us. We've done add-ons. I think we've done a second property of his now. And he owned a extremely successful roofing company in our area. And I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, I'd love to go to lunch with you and just pick your brain about, your company and how you grew." And we set a time to meet for lunch. He texted me about 5 minutes after we were supposed to meet. He said, "Hey, I had something come up. I'm so sorry. Pick another place. I've got lunch. I'll cover you the next time." And so we met, a week later. Well, found out the meeting that ran long was him selling his roofing company for 9 figures. And so we get to the next meeting. It's a couple days after he's settled this big sale, and he walks in the meeting, and the first thing he does is he turns his phone off and puts his phone down, and we hung out for 2 hours of just him, giving it. So it's like, all right, I see him turn his phone off. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna turn mine off because there's nothing more important than what's happening right here, obviously. And
Undivided attention.
yeah, and it was just that like, oh man, he wants me to be successful, so I need to make sure I surround myself with people like that. And then what really helped me was our second year in business. I brought on a partner that also owned an outdoor lighting perspectives franchise in South Carolina, or a couple of them. He came to Orlando. I partnered in this business. Then him and I also expanded down the coast. And so he provided a lot of advice and help and financial help to make those moves happen while we were growing in Orlando. He also brought a team with him. So he had his own CFO that we were able to use, had our own marketing team that was now a shared service between us. And so that really helped. Sometimes selling some of your business to gain a strategic partner, really can make a big difference. And so he's now off to he's gone from the home service over into manufacturing. So we're buying him back out of his shares and have grown the value with him. And so he's happy to do that. And we're excited to see him go on the manufacturing side. And, that's been cool. and helped our growth a ton.
Awesome. Well, I mean, with the amount that you've grown, there's got to be some challenges that you're still facing. So, what are some of those issues that you guys are trying to work through right now currently?
Yeah, so some of the biggest issues we have in our business, sales solves a lot of problems. It's hard to beat revenue, so you can have a lot of problems that you know, bigger sales and more sales definitely helps. So we're definitely the largest lighting company in Orlando currently. We're trying to grow with more trade and strategic partnerships. I think that's a huge thing that a lot of independent business owners understand, but don't develop very well. It's hard. You really want to set up a strategy, and it needs to be a real system in place for developing trade partnerships. And how do you manage them after, you've made friends and got a lunch? So it's doing that next step. Okay, I like your product. You like me. Let's work. Like, how do we work together effectively? And how do I get my office to talk to your office to continue that going? So that's always something that we're working through. Lighting, especially in Florida and really around North America, is a seasonal business. So in the summertime, it's hard to sell lights when it's light out till 9 p.m. So our business does slow a bit in the summer. So having commercial and builder projects kind of helps bridge that gap, because if you're too seasonal, training and staffing becomes difficult. Managing the technicians and your good lead technicians and keeping them employed year round with real work to do. It's expensive to give out payroll when there's not revenue happening. So that's always difficult. And then developing a new market. So our West Palm office is about 2 years old now, and that's a much more competitive market than Orlando was. Orlando was competitive, but West Palm is incredibly competitive for outdoor lighting. And so some of the things we did to be successful here aren't coming as easy down there. And so we're having a lot more marketing spend costs down there than we expected to try to make sure we're making an impact and getting our name in that market. So that's probably our biggest struggle. So year-round work and staff, I would say, are always the tough parts.
So, how are you targeting your customers or even the commercial side of things? Like, is it mainly based off of your reputation of the franchise on the website, or what avenues are you exploring to try to get more of that residential or even that commercial market?
Yes, I mean, Outdoor Lighting Perspectives is the largest outdoor lighting company in North America, but I hadn't heard about them until I was looking into franchising. It's not like being a McDonald's franchise where every kid under, 3 years old and up knows what a Happy Meal is. It is a lot of local lift. Here in Orlando and in West Palm, we're members of the local builders associations. So the Greater Orlando Builders Association here in Orlando, Treasure Coast Builders Association down the coast. So we're heavily involved with those. We're in different committees and groups to try to be a part of that. And that kind of helps get those trade partnerships going. And then for client outreach, it's about having solid branding. So as simple as every vehicle that we have is wrapped, with the full wrap with our logo and a very professional looking design. All of our employees wear a uniform and are, you know, properly trained how to represent the company. If there's a way to try to get in touch with somebody, we're spending money on it. So digital, social, Google, SEO, AI campaigns, direct mail, magazines, review flyers, cold call. I mean, if there's a way to try to get in touch with somebody, we're making an attempt at it.
You got to explore all the avenues. I
Yeah.
understand that. So, I mean, last question I'm going to ask you before we wrap up is next 6 to 12 months.
Yep.
What are some of the goals? Where are you trying to take the business?
Yeah. So we're currently short term, we're in the fight for first place in our franchise system with being the largest franchisee within the system. So there's some solid competition up there, and we're not running away with it, but we're shooting to be first. We're definitely going to be in the top three. So, really, really excited about that as we wrap up 2025. Longer term, over the next couple of years, we're looking to expand even more territories, add a third and maybe fourth office, and really lean into the commercial space. So we've had some great success with multifamily apartment complexes with doing some really nice lighting design for their pedestrian scale walking paths, as well as like the clubhouses and nail boxes and entrances and things like that. I think that's a huge untapped market in our industry. So we're doing a lot of outreach to those developers. And we're also looking to pivot. Right now, we do a really good job with large volume homes. We have a target of homes that are, around $1 million home value and up is our targeted client. but we're going to change some of our marketing to really go after those really affluent markets and those estate properties that don't respond to traditional marketing. So we've got some kind of neat things in the pipeline and a bunch of testing we're about to do over the next year to try to really go target those large estate properties where we can do a lot with a lot of budget and hang some more chandeliers and some oak trees. So that's kind of the
There you
goal.
go.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're down in the West Palm area, there's got to be a lot of, large properties close to Jupiter. All the PGA golfers are down there. They've got all those big properties. I'm sure they'd want some fancy stuff down there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, once you get in with those types of groups, we've got some baseball players we've done work with and some golfers. And it's, once you start doing work in those groups, then you start getting that referral and word of mouth. And it's all about staying front of mind for those clients you've already serviced and make sure they know to keep referring you and remember who you are.
Yeah. Well, Travis, thank you. I think this has been a great conversation. It's
Yep.
shared a lot of insight into outdoor lighting perspectives, and especially in your branch down there in Florida. And I wish you nothing but the best here in the next 6 to 12 months. I hope you crush your goals, and I hope you take over that first place amongst your company there.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.